everybody. Out here smoking some more North Sea out of my custom built. I've been geeking out really bad about beer videos today. I've been watching little history of beer presentations on YouTube, and I love, like I've mentioned before, I love any kind of history, science-y things like that, and I spent about an hour earlier watching how beer saved the world. And they start off, from the very beginning of human history, when we were hunter-gatherers about, 10,000 years ago or so, and they talk about how it's pretty well known at this point that among the first crops that we started bringing in was barley. It was like the first grain that we actually domesticated, and people, a lot of anthropologists thought for a long time it was because of bread. But they've started looking at different things like all these tablets from Mesopotamia with the cuneiform writing, and because of things that they found in ancient logs and stuff like that, and I mean as in log books, not actual logs. They're thinking now that the reason for domesticating barley was so they'd have enough grain to brew beer. So it's becoming more popular now to say that civilization is because of beer, which I think is pretty cool. And like the ancient Egyptians, to go into, well, for one thing, first of all, basically beer was money, more or less. If you did work for somebody, then you were given a little chit that said, you have earned 50 jars of beer, or whatever the number, and so it was, you did work, you got beer. That's more or less how things work out and still nowadays, except there's a little bit of money in between, but for most people, work ends up at some point or another in beer. But the average Egyptian 3,000 years ago would work through 300 liters of beer in 1 year. And just in building a pyramid, one pyramid, over 200 million gallons of beer were made and distributed amongst the laborers. I have to relight this in a minute. So, that's just really cool to me. And like one of the they think that's some people, a lot of anthropologists believe that the reason writing was invented was to keep track of the distribution of beer. And another little interesting factoid about ancient beer, it was brewed differently. It was a lot grainier and had more nutrients. A lot of our beer tends to be more like sugar water now. It's not quite the same as it used to be, but like they started finding trace amounts they started finding trace amounts of antibiotics in the skeletal remains of ancient Egyptians, and they, using recipes that have been rediscovered, they started brewing up, or brewing and baking, whatever, all these different Egyptian food items to try and account for where all these antibiotics are coming from. Turns out it was in the beer. And there was another little thing about how even children, before they got up and went to school in the morning or whatever they did 3,000 years ago, children would start off the day with a dish of beer. Everybody drank beer. It was a very nutritious meal. Not just a beverage, it was an actual food group, basically. And even the Puritans, the Puritans, pilgrims, whatever, when they were coming over to America, the New World, they were running out of beer. And so they stopped at the closest point of land, which was Plymouth Rock. And the reason for that was because that they come from England, and in England you did not drink water, because if you drank water you'd get sick. If you wanted something to drink that would not make you sick, you drank beer. And they didn't know why it was that beer didn't make you sick and water would. Of course, now we know that when you brew beer, you boil the water, and that kills any microbes in it. And then alcohol and hops are good preservatives and keep the beer sterile most of the time. A little bit on that in a minute. So they basically didn't have anything to drink, so they had to pull over. So that's why they landed at Plymouth and not at Virginia, which was their original destination. Virginia was, where you went if you wanted to get started in America. And then the scientist Pasteur, the creator of pasteurization. And, people always kind of peg him for trying to figure out how to pasteurize milk, and that wasn't the case either. He was trying to figure out how to preserve beer. He noticed that when sometimes beer went bad, and so he started examining it, and he found out that in addition to the yeast cells, there were also tinier tinier little squiggles in there moving around, and he actually discovered bacteria because he was studying why beer was going bad. And the pasteurization process was a result of that, and also basic hygiene, because before that point, if a doctor went into a delivery, a doctor might have come out of an autopsy and went straight to deliver a baby. And once they actually figured out what germs were, doctors started washing their hands before delivering baby, and before doing procedures like that, and infections were cut down. And so yet another thing that because of beer, we discovered the microbial world, and one of the little mysteries of disease was solved. So one of the things that's suggested in that How Beer Saved the World documentary is that you can almost literally use beer. Look at me. Yeah, you can figuratively use beer as a yardstick for human achievement, basically. I don't know. Thought I'd share that with y'all, and I'm going to go relight this, and you guys take care and happy trails.